Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Saturday Morning Storytime Live. I am your host and reader, Joey Medea. Let's just roll the intro before we get to this wonderful new book. It's part of a big new book launch tour today, Katy on Broadway by Ella English. I'm so excited. This is a perfect storm of a story. So let's roll our intro and get to reading. All right, short, sweet, and to the point like we like it. Katy on Broadway by Ella English. This is the kind of story I love. I can do some voices and even going to do a little singing because this obviously is a celebration of just that. This is the first book in the Katy in the City, Katy on Broadway series. Again, by Ella English, written and illustrated. Chapter 1. And there is Katy doing her thing. You are going to see and hear that she loves to sing standing on the branch of a tree. Jerry always told me not to sing, but I would never stop, not ever, because I was going to be a star. I was standing in my yard up on Jerry's favorite branch. I imagined I was on stage, a tuxedo cat in a pink spangly dress. And this is my version of a pink spangly dress. The spotlight followed me across the stage. The audience gasped as I started to sing. A beautiful song came out of my open mouth. I was thrilled to see the people in the front row were breaking out into smiles. They were leaning forward, trying to hear more of my voice when thwack! I was back in my backyard, up on Jerry's branch. Take that, I cried, throwing some acorns up at Jerry. The birds flapped away. What a diva, said the orange bird. What kind of cat are you, said the bluebird, flying up close to my face. You'd rather sing your awful songs than try to catch a bird? It's just not natural. I felt like crying, but I puffed out my chest instead. One day I will be a superstar. You'll see. Jerry laughed. Superstar? You've never even been out of this garden, and you never will, because you're just a fraidy cat. Jerry started to chant, Katy cat is a fraidy cat, Katy cat is a fraidy cat. The orange bird somersaulted through the air, landing on my nose and making my whiskers tremble. Fraidy Katy! Hey, I shouted, I ain't no fraidy cat. As soon as I had batted that orange bird away from my face, the bluebird started shrieking in my ear. You're a yellow-bellied coward cat, that's what you are! As I got up and brushed some bits of twig out of my fur, I heard my owner Lillian calling me. So I went back inside. Oh, dear, Lillian picked me up. She stared at me. What happened? Have you been in a fight? Was it with that squirrel? He is such a bully. You don't want to mess with him. One day he's going to bite you. But I like to practice my singing outside, I said. Stay inside, Katy cat, she said. She kissed my head. It's a dangerous world out there. Out in the city, there are monster cats and monster squirrels that will eat you for breakfast. So stay inside, Katy cat. Take a break from singing. It's giving me a headache. I curled up in my basket, put my head on my fuzzy pink pillow. I tried to sleep, but I couldn't. I wanted to do what Lillian asked and stay inside. But all I could think about was being a star. I really wanted to sing on stage. Chapter 2. I wanted to do what Lillian told me and stay away from Jerry and the birds and their nasty comments. But it was hard. Sometimes I would get this urge to perform. I could feel my fur start to get prickly and I would scratch to make the itch go away. But sometimes the itch wouldn't quit until I scrambled up the tree and burst into song. So you see, there wasn't a thing I could do about it. All through the summer I sang, even when Jerry hollered at me to stop. But one day my fur was standing up on end and itching so much I couldn't stand it. So I climbed up on Jerry's branch and I sang wonderfully. But Jerry started throwing acorns again. This time I held a metal trash can lid. Jerry's acorns pinged off the lid. Jerry shrieked, not fair, you're wearing armor. Suddenly I'd had enough. Take that, Jerry. Take that once and for all, I roared. Flashing the trash can lid at Jerry, I jumped. Whoosh! Closing my eyes, I flew. I was feeling scared and excited, all knotted together in my tummy. But there was no turning back now. I sailed in a high arc. I landed on a pretzel cart. The pretzel man screamed and waved his big red hands at me. Pretzels flew everywhere. Jerry was still trying to hit me with acorns. I leapt from the cart to the ground and ran down the street. Motorcycles zoomed past, cars and trucks thundered by, making the ground tremble. I was terrified I was going to be flattened. I sniffed the air. It smelled of sugary nuts roasting. It smelled of pizza pies sizzling in ovens. I was dodging my way through traffic when a yellow taxi blared its horn and I jumped. The taxi had run over my tail. Watch where you're going, the man yelled from inside the cab. I scrambled up the sidewalk and started to run. Chapter 3. Well, I was running so fast, not looking where I was going, I ran into a patch of fishy-smelling fur. Hey, fellow, what are you going in such a hurry? You lost? I stepped back and looked straight into the eyes of a raggedy ginger cat with a tear in his ear. I am certainly not lost, I squeaked. I tried to cry. I was scared I was lost in the big city. I'm Weasel, he said. I'm Katy Cat. Pleased to meet you. He was nibbling at a fish skeleton. Want some? No, thanks. I only eat the best cat food. Weasel laughed. I held up my injured tail. A taxi driver just ran over my tail. My bottom lip started to wobble. And, okay, yes, I am lost. Sorry to hear that. Weasel nudged me with his nose. I shrugged. Still, I guess I'm lucky I haven't been attacked by the monster squirrels and cats that roam this city. Who told you that? Weasel shook his head. Never mind. You sure you should be out here on your own? I don't know. It's grimy out there and loud. I need to get home. Do you know where Skillet Street is? I live in the house with the black railings. I don't know where that is. But look, maybe we should stick together. Things can get pretty rough out here. I can look out for you. Sure, I said, smiling at my new pal. I'd like that. A dog appeared. He grabbed the fish skeleton. Not so fast, buddy, Weasel yelled. He started to give chase, and I followed behind. We ran and ran. We ran down a street with lots of bright, flashing lights, but at some point, we lost the dog. We were side by side in a back alley that was all covered in garbage. I was trying to get my breath back. Wanted to ask, Weasel turned to me. Why'd you run away from home anyway? Well, there's a squirrel, see, called Jerry. He makes my life miserable. You see, I'm a singer. A singer? Yes, and Jerry says I can sing. I gave him a few bars from one of my favorite musicals. Well, that's crazy. You can sing. Jerry don't know what he's talking about. Oh, you really think so? I felt so all warm and gooey inside. Here was a friend who could believe I could sing. Yes, I do, but I'm kind of starving right now. You want to try to rustle up some food? Sure, why not? My stomach was starting to growl. I scampered after Weasel, weaving in and out of the people's feet as the crowds got thicker. Now it was just one human pressed up against another in a hurry to get somewhere. On top of that were more car horns, bright lights, flashing billboards, and cars that were bumper to bumper. I would have lost my mind without Weasel. I followed him back to the back door of the building. People were carrying boxes full of wine and crates of cheese. They didn't notice as I rushed up some stairs. We scampered along a corridor until we came to a kitchen full of people. They were running about and stirring big bubbling pots of soup. Weasel led me through another door back outside. He jumped into a dumpster of rotten food. I didn't want to jump in, but I held my nose and jumped. It was smelly. There were bits of meat, lettuce, and fish heads under our feet. I didn't really like being in the dumpster, but I was hungry, so I began nibbling on a lobster claw. Weasel and I lay back when we finished our meal. As I looked at Weasel, I wondered what I was doing here. I had run away from home to get a taste of the big wide world, but now my thirst stank of rotten veggies, and I was sleeping on garbage. So, how do you like being in the big city? Well, I feel scared and alone. Don't be silly. You got me, Weasel said, closing his eyes. I hummed a few bars of a song to myself and went to sleep. I shivered a little in the night air. I missed Lillian. I missed my basket, my favorite pink fuzzy pillow. I missed my gourmet cat food and my cat water fountain. I even missed Jerry and his grinning little face. Chapter 4. I woke up face down in a pile of smelly garbage leaves. I could hear a familiar tune. It was from a musical called The Green Flamingo. I knew because Lillian had the soundtrack. It's about a flamingo who's green and doesn't fit in with other pink flamingos. Well, I started to sing along. The grass is proud to be green. The emerald is proud to be green. The greenest shoots sprout in the spring. Yet to be a green flamingo is an awful thing. Why can I be pink? Weasel started to clap. Where was that music coming from? I leapt up from the dumpster and scurried into the building. Up and down the stairs we ran. The music grew louder. We burst through a door. What an amazing sight! There were rows upon rows of people. They were staring up at the stage. On the stage was a large green flamingo. He twirled and he sang a sad song. I need to get closer, I whispered to Weasel. Yeah, I know what you mean. That bird looks like it could be a tasty little snack. Well, I don't want to eat the flamingo. I just want to get a good look. We made our way to the stage. It was dark as we walked down between the seats. I could see the bright lights of the stage. This was what I had always dreamed of. The stage! My stomach started to do flip-flops. I really wanted to go on stage, but I was scared. A group of pink flamingos were dancing around the green flamingo. They looked like they did not like him very much. The pink flamingos seemed like they wanted to attack the green flamingo. I knew the green flamingo needed help. I knew I could help, so I jumped up on the stage. The audience started to gasp. Oh, and here, that's happening. I was so into the story. I'll go back at the end and show you the illustrations. The audience started to gasp. The pink flamingos were frightened. They started running into the corners. I ran towards the green flamingo. He was the biggest bird I ever saw. The music soared. I got up on my hind legs. I lifted one leg high and I did a twirl. The audience clapped. The green flamingo was still singing. The words rose in my throat. I jumped up onto the bird's shoulder, clung to his feathers so I wouldn't fall off, and in my most beautiful voice I sang, maybe there's a potion. Maybe there's a lotion. Maybe there's a medicine to take away my green. Of all the flamingos in all of the world, why did this happen to me? Why can't I be pink? I heard loud clapping and the audience stood up and kept on clapping. I couldn't see anything anymore. All I saw were flashing lights, one bright light after another. And there is Katy doing her thing on the flamingo's shoulder. I bolted off stage right. Weasel leapt across the stage and ran up beside me. Hey, what happened? I have to get out of here. Come on, Weasel said, beckoning me to a side door. I hurtled and crashed my way down some dark back stairs. There were props piled up all around us. A pirate ship, a haunted house, and a creepy clown head. That's perfect for me, all three. Watch out, Weasel said as the clown head teetered and crashed down towards me. The next thing I knew, I woke up outside the theater. I was lying on the sidewalk near the entrance of the theater. The sky was dark. My head was propped up on a rolled-up towel. What happened? I asked Weasel, imitating his voice. I think maybe you were overwhelmed by the flashing lights. We were running down some stairs and you got hit by a flying clown head. You've been out for a while. My head does feel a bit sore, I said, blinking up at the bright lights. They look like showers of stars. I feel weird. I'm sure you do. He stroked my forehead. People started streaming out of the theater, crowding around me. It made me feel uncomfortable. Oh, that poor little cat, said a girl with pink streaked hair. She doesn't look well. I love your voice, squealed a boy with a gap-tooth smile, leaning down and scratching me behind the ear. How about you come to my birthday party and sing for me? Stand back, give us some air, Weasel said, nudging the boy and moving him away from me. Poor little kitty, an old lady said, stepping forward. She had sparkly bright blue eyes and a wrinkled face. Where do you live? I live on, I replied, but my mind had gone blank. She lives on Skillet Street, Weasel replied to the old lady, but I don't know how I'm going to get her home. The lady twisted her pearl necklace between her fingers. Peering down, she said, I'd love to give her a ride. My car is just over there. I stared up at the sea of cell phones. People's mouths were opening and closing. Excuse me. They looked like goldfish in a bowl. My head was pounding. In between all the faces, I could just make out a street sign saying Broadway. I was so happy and so tired. Thanks, that would be great, Weasel told the lady. Let's try and get it to the car. An elderly gentleman came up beside her. What is all the commotion about, Millicent? Oh, Arthur, let's get this poor little cat into the car and take her home. She looks exhausted. She scooped me up and cuddled me up against her powdery cheek. I started to purr. I was so proud that I'd faced my fear of performing on stage, but now I wanted nothing more than to curl up in the car and away from the crowd of yelling people. A big shiny black car drew up. Arthur opened the door and Millicent carried me in. Can Weasel come too? I said. I guess so, Millicent replied. As I rested my head on Millicent's lap, I relived the night's events. I couldn't wait to tell Lillian all about it. Arthur leaned over and scratched me behind the ears. Wow, what a performance. You'll be a star for sure. Weasel was purring away, rubbing himself against Millicent's ankle. She tickled his neck. When we got back to my house, I said goodbye to Weasel, promising to get in touch too soon. Millicent said, oh, don't worry about him. You're such good friends. Maybe we can take him to a pet salon and get him a shampoo. That's okay, lady, Weasel said, looking alarmed. Well, at least let us take you to our house for a nice meal, she said, patting Weasel's head. Weasel purred. Now that's more like it. Arthur climbed out, opened the door for us. Then Millicent carried me to the front door and knocked Lillian, flung open the door. Thanks so much for bringing Katy back. My pleasure. She's had quite an adventure. Millicent handed me over. I was so pleased to see Lillian. I gave a loud meow, and Lillian pressed her face into my fur. I told her everything that had happened. Her eyes grew wide. Maybe she couldn't quite believe it. I couldn't quite believe it myself. Later, I settled into my basket, laid my head on my fuzzy pink pillow, and fell into a deep sleep. The next morning when I woke up, Lillian showed me a newspaper. There was a picture of me in it. Oh, and there's Millicent and Lillian. I was sitting on the shoulder of the green flamingo singing my heart out. I'm so proud of you, sweetie, Lillian said. Yeah, me too, I said, purring. Singing in front of that audience was the greatest thing ever. It's like I was born to be on Broadway. That evening, I ran outside and climbed up the tree. I settled myself on Jerry's branch. I opened the paper and stared again at the image of myself. The birds fluttered around me. They peeked at the paper, trying to tear holes at it. You can peck all you like. I'm a star, and you know it. Jerry glared at me from inside his hollowed-out tree. See over there, I said, pointing at some twinkling lights. Over there, that's Broadway. That's where I made my debut last night. Jerry coughed and mumbled something from inside his hole. What'd you say, Jerry? Jerry poked his head out. I said, maybe you can sing. You better believe it. You ain't seen the last of this singing cat. And there's the newspaper article. So real quick, I'll flip through. I showed you Katy. There's Katy with Lillian. She loves her, but don't sing. You're giving me a headache. Kids and even sometimes adults hear that a lot. You got to grip it and rip it when you sing, not just in the shower, in your bedroom. Just, someone gave me the advice when I was in college that truly to be a singer, you got to sing any place, anytime. I just kind of went for it this morning. I practiced some melodies a little, but they changed when I sang them today. So singing is the great joy. Look at that. Broadway, the great white way. So there's Katy sleeping on garbage. Peter Dinklage is a very famous actor who says, lucky, I got lucky. No, I slept for years in cars and on garbage in order to make it. So sometimes that's part of following the dream, and parents and friends and family and all get very nervous about that. There is Katy singing a big, beautiful full page illustration. So wonderful book, wonderful message. So honored to be part of the big launch today. My book review for this is at newmystics.com. You can also find it on Goodreads and Amazon. You can find links on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all those places where you can find me. Thanks for joining me today for this wonderful book, first in the series. Good morning, Angelina. Good morning to my brother. I would like to dedicate this reading this morning to my wife, Tanya, who had a birthday yesterday. She's living far away for now, helping people during very tough economic times, and I'm very proud of her and I miss her very much. She may even be watching this. So anyway, I will see you next week. I'm going to read selections like Stinky Cheese Man and other John Scaleska variations on famous fairy tales. So I'll see you next week. Everybody be well, stay safe. It's snowing in Ohio.